The city surrounded Nia like an enormous moving tapestry of lights, sounds, and people. Everywhere she looked, there was something new to marvel at. A towering building with windows like mirrors. A street bustling with sellers shouting to attract customers. Cars honking as they zipped past. And people rushing as if every second mattered. Each detail overwhelmed her senses, and she struggled to take it all in. Nia had arrived at the city's heart, a place alive with movement. Even the air smelled different, thick and tinged with unfamiliar scents, both pleasant and harsh. She clutched her belongings tightly and took a deep breath, reminding herself why she was here. This city was her chance to learn, to grow, to bring something back to Masara that would help her people. And though the place felt overwhelming, she could feel a sense of possibility simmering beneath her apprehension. The next morning, she made her way to the school where she would begin her studies. It was nothing like the small school back in Masara. This building stretched up multiple floors, its glass walls gleaming in the sunlight, and students filed in and out with a purpose she admired. Some students carried books in their arms, while others clutched strange, sleek machines they called laptops. Nia had only ever read from paper, and the sight of these devices fascinated her. Inside, the hallways echoed with the chatter of students. It seemed that everyone here knew where they were going, and Nia felt a pang of loneliness. Just as she was wondering if she'd ever fit in, a friendly voice called out,
"Hey, you look a bit lost. New here? I am Zara."
Yes, I am new here, grateful to find a friendly face. I'm from Masara, a village far from here.
I thought so. I've heard of villages like that, though I've never been to one. Must be so different from here. Don't worry, though. You'll get the hang of things soon enough. Stick with me and I'll show you around.
Zara quickly took Nia under her wing, explaining how things worked in the city. She showed Nia the quickest routes between classes, the best places to eat on a budget, and even some hidden study spots in the school's expansive library. As they walked through the campus, Nia couldn't help but marvel at everything. The sheer size of the place, the variety of students from all walks of life, and the advanced technology that made learning easier. Yet, as she soaked in the new environment, Nia noticed subtle differences between her and the others. Most students were dressed in polished clothes, each one seemingly aware of the latest fashion trends. In her simple hand-woven dress from Masara, she stood out. Her clothes were made with love and care, but here they looked out of place. She saw people glance at her attire, and though no one said anything, Nia felt their curious stares. But Zara's company helped her forget these differences, at least for a while. Zara was endlessly fascinating, full of stories about the city and the adventures she'd had. She seemed to know everyone and everything. As they chatted, Zara shared tales of city festivals, concerts, and outings that sounded more magical than anything Nia had experienced in Masara.
Stick with me. This city can be overwhelming, but once you know its ways, you'll feel right at home. I've been here my whole life, so I know all the shortcuts.
Nia smiled, grateful for Zara's guidance, though she sometimes felt out of place in the stories her friend told. There was an ease with which Zara moved through life in the city, a confidence Nia hadn't yet found, but she was determined. The purpose that had brought her here, to learn for her village's sake, grounded her whenever doubts crept in. She reminded herself of her family's sacrifices, the trust her village had placed in her, and that kept her going. Yet, as she spent more time with Zara, Nia noticed something peculiar. Zara always seemed to have money to spare, even though she came from a modest background. While Nia rationed her small stipend carefully, Zara bought new clothes, ate at restaurants, and had gadgets that seemed expensive. Curious, Nia asked her one afternoon as they walked through a bustling street market.
Oh, don't worry about it. I've got a few side gigs here and there. Just some easy ways to make a little extra.
Nia nodded, not wanting to press further. Zara's life was very different from her own, and perhaps this was just the way things worked in the city. Still, the question lingered in her mind. Zara's life seemed effortless, while each day for Nia was a careful balancing act. Every coin she spent had to be accounted for, every meal rationed to stretch her money as far as possible. Despite her worries, Nia continued to push forward, studying with dedication. In class, she observed the lessons intently, eager to absorb everything. She learned about science, mathematics, and technology that Masara had never dreamed of. She marveled at the city's methods of farming, which used machines and advanced tools to increase yield. She realized that with these techniques, the hard labor that weighed on Masara's people could be made lighter. Each lesson felt like a gift, something she could bring back to her village someday. But even as Nia learned and grew, the city's demands weighed on her. The pressure to fit in was subtle but ever present. Sometimes the stares and whispers about her simple clothes and village mannerisms would unsettle her, making her wish she could blend in more seamlessly. Yet, in her heart, she knew that her purpose was far greater than fitting in. She was here for Masara, for her family, for the friends who had entrusted her with their dreams. Nia promised herself that she would not let her worries distract her from her mission. She would study hard, learn all she could, and return home with the knowledge to make a difference. Weeks passed, and life in the city began to take its toll on Nia. She had arrived with her small pouch of savings from the villages of Masara. But the city was more expensive than she had anticipated. The cost of food, supplies, and even basic necessities was higher than anything she had known back home. Each day she carefully rationed her money, stretching every coin to make it last. But it seemed like no matter how careful she was, the coins slipped through her fingers faster than she could control. At night, as the city's lights flickered outside her small rented room, Nia would lie awake, her stomach rumbling. Hunger had become her constant companion, gnawing at her with a relentless ache that she tried to ignore. She would close her eyes and picture the simple meals back in Masara. Bowls of warm porridge, sweet fruits, and the taste of fresh bread her mother would bake over the open fire. Here, in the vastness of the city, those memories felt like distant dreams. Her friend, Zara, noticed her struggles. Zara was always cheerful, quick to laugh, and seemed unfazed by the city's demands. One afternoon, she approached Nia with a smile and a small parcel wrapped in brown paper.
Here, it's just a little something for you.
Nia opened the parcel to find bread, a handful of dried fruit, and a small bag of rice. Her heart swelled with gratitude, but a pang of guilt tugged at her. She didn't want to be a burden to anyone, especially not Zara.
Thank you, Zara, but I don't want to take what's yours. You've been so kind to me already.
Nonsense. It's nothing really. You're my friend, and friends help each other. Besides, this city can be hard on new people, especially someone like you. I know it's not easy.
Despite Zara's reassurances, Nia struggled with the feeling of dependency. Her village had sent her with all they could spare, and she had promised herself she would not waste a single coin. She wanted to succeed, to learn, and to make her people proud. But each night, as her hunger grew and her funds dwindled, she felt that promise slipping through her grasp. One evening, after another long day of classes, Nia found herself alone in her room, her hands trembling as she counted the remaining coins in her pouch. There was so little left. She felt tears pricking her eyes as she considered the sacrifices her village had made, the gifts they had sent her off with, and the faith they had placed in her. She felt as though she was failing them, letting their dreams slip away. The next day, Nia approached Zara again. Though it pained her to ask, she realized she had no other option.
Zara, if you don't mind, could you lend me a little more? Just enough to help me get by for the next few days. I'll find a way to pay you back.
Nia was curious, but something in Zara's tone made her hesitate. She looked at the coins, feeling both relieved and uneasy. "Thank you, Zara," she said, deciding to leave it at that. But Zara's offer lingered in her mind, a temptation that grew stronger with each passing day. As the days turned into weeks, Nia's routine became a delicate balancing act. She threw herself into her studies, learning about agriculture, engineering, and sustainable practices that she could one day bring back to Masara. Each lesson felt like a treasure, a new way to improve her village and lighten the burdens of the people she loved. Yet, beneath her determination, hunger gnawed at her spirit. She rationed her meals, eating just enough to quiet the ache in her stomach. Some days, she barely had enough to keep herself going, and her thin frame grew frailer with each passing week. Her clothes, simple but full of Masara's colors and patterns, hung loosely on her shoulders, a reminder of the life she had left behind. Her classmates began to notice her struggles. Some would offer her a snack, others would invite her to join them for lunch, but each time Nia would politely decline. She didn't want their pity. She wanted to succeed on her own terms. She knew she had to endure the hardships, to prove to herself and to her village that she was capable of achieving her dreams, no matter how difficult the path might be. One afternoon, as Nia was studying in the school's library, she felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. Her vision blurred, and she could barely focus on the words in front of her. She hadn't eaten in over a day, and the hunger was beginning to make her weak. Just as she was about to close her book, Zara appeared, her usual bright smile tempered with concern.
Nia, you can't keep doing this to yourself. This city isn't like Masara. Life here demands more from you. More energy, more money, more everything. You're pushing yourself too hard.
I know, Zara, but I came here for a reason. My village is counting on me. I can't let them down.
Listen, I know you don't want to rely on anyone, but sometimes we have to accept help. And if you ever change your mind about making a little extra money, just let me know. It's not easy work, but it'll get you through the day.
Nia nodded, though her pride resisted the idea. She wanted to succeed on her own terms, to prove that she could make it without sacrificing her values. But Zara's words echoed in her mind, a reminder of the city's harsh demands and the limitations of her resources. That night, Nia lay awake, staring at the ceiling of her small room, her stomach rumbling with hunger. She thought about her village, her family, and the dreams she had carried with her to the city. Each dream felt heavier now, weighed down by the reality of her situation. She closed her eyes, hoping that sleep would bring her relief, if only for a few hours. As her thoughts drifted, she whispered a quiet promise to herself.
I must not fail them. I must find a way.